Welcome to Light 'em Up Outdoors. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make your own turkey shadow box. So grab your tail fan, your spurs, and your beards, and I'll show you how it's done. So this is my crude method of setting this up, just to give you a ballpark of how big you want it, how wide you want it. So I'm thinking about 41 inches tall on this, and approximately 30 inches wide. So now that we've got that, we can start making our cuts. Okay, so this is what it looks like after making the rough cuts to length. With six 6-inch boards, it's about 35 inches. Now keep in mind, 6-inch boards aren't actually 6 inches. So it's about 35 inches. There's a decent chunk of unused real estate that, I don't want to just have a whole bunch of real estate in there in the backboards. I know there's stuff you can fill it with, but I think there's going to be plenty of room if we kind of make it a little bit tighter with 5 boards, and then stick the frame there. I think the 5 boards is the way to go, so it's not enormous. So the width on that is approximately 20, little over a hair of 29 1/8 inch. So that's what we will cut our top and bottom part of the frame to be. So your basic frame and backboards are done. There's only just a couple cuts left. So one of them is the board that goes across to hold all your beards, and the other is some sort of medallion to hide the cuts you made to your tail fan. After cutting the board to hold the beards, I'm now ready to show you how to make the medallion. So here's the template I have. I just stapled it to the board with a common stapler. Now I'm going to draw around it. Hopefully I'll do okay doing this. Now it's time to cut the medallion using a jigsaw. Alright, so there's our rough shape there. We'll sand it down and stain it up. So that's kind of how this will look once it's on the board. Just a rough look at it. Then the legs will go through these slots here. I'm going to put a little age to these boards here, make it seem like they're older. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use this, against the wood and kind of distress it a little bit. So we'll do that now, and always be sure to wear your safety glasses when you're doing this. So. So I'll show you preliminarily You know, you see you get a little more structure or kind of an aged look. Hopefully you can see that, but it's as opposed to this kind of flat pine, you kind of get those grains that come out like older wood has. So I'm going to continue doing this and see how it turns out. All right, so there we have it. Now we just gotta clean up a little bit and then we'll do our stain. I haven't pinned anything yet. I've just kind of laid it out. And at this time I've tested the stains that I want to use. So I know I want to whitewash it, but before I do that, I want to put a base coat down of a wood stain. This here is gun stock. So that's the color there is sort of a light reddish color to an extent. And this is Minwax Golden Oak. This is more of a darker stain here. And this is the whitewash. I might go 2 coats on there if I have enough. But I'm thinking the Minwax Golden Oak kind of has a better base, more realistic base. So I'm going to be using the Minwax Golden Oak. And when I do this, I'm just going to use a rag to do it. And it's okay, or it's actually encouraged that you don't put like an even coat on. Some areas you want kind of blotchy or darker. Maybe other areas you don't want any, but otherwise if it's all one solid color, it doesn't really look real. You can do multiple coats. So you get to see the kind of character in the wood here. I'll grab another. You know, you can, sometimes it kind of look like saw marks or just general grain, but I think it's pretty cool. So I'm gonna do a little bit more on this and then we'll let it sit. So this is how it looks after I stained it with a Minwax stain, Golden Oak stain. I had planned to whitewash it, but man, this looks pretty good. I can't decide if it's something I want to do or not, but I guess we'll go forward with the whitewash. But one thing I have to do still, I have to trim this middle piece here, and I've got my line. This would be a whole lot easier if I had a table saw, but I'm just going to have to do the best I can with what I have. So let's give you a closer look. So that's the way it looks. Once we finish our stain, presuming we're going to the whitewash, then we'll put some glue on the corners, you know, all the slats there, and then tack it together with a brad nailer. So I took about 1 inch or 1.25 inches off this board. As I mentioned, I didn't have a table saw, so I just did the best I could with it. You know, it's fine. It's not going to be mistaken for, you know, a master craftsman's work, but you know, I think it looks just fine. You know, keep in mind this is kind of a barnwood look, a rustic barnwood look, so things don't necessarily have to be perfect with it. One thing I didn't show you that I did that I thought was pretty cool was kind of putting these wormhole type looks in it. And all I did essentially with that was just use a hammer and nail to kind of drag it or go straight down. So that's basically what it looks like. I probably should have done that, some more of it while I was, before I stained the first coat, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. All right, so now I promise I'll do the whitewash. All right, as I showed before, I don't want to leave this on too long, otherwise it leads to wood that's a little bit too white for my liking. You can always add more later on. Remember, with this frame, 3 sides are going to be visible unless you hang it really high or really low. All right, so we will let these sit. I think it has to sit about 8 hours. So we'll let these sit and dry. All right, so this is what it looks like after we whitewashed it. I apologize for the noise in the background. It's raining pretty hard, but hopefully you can hear me and we can proceed. So what I'm going to do now is pin all this together. But first I'm going to put some glue on the corners. Okay, for this part, what I'm going to do, drill a hole through it so it doesn't crack. This screw is about 1.5 inch screw. Alright, so we got the frame all tacked down and glued. So what I'm going to do now is remove that. And I'm just going to put some glue on the boards here. For a little extra, I'm going to put a screw in the back here just to hold it. Alright, so that's tacked together. We'll let that sit for 24 hours. I'm going to put a coat, clear coat on these spurs, on these feet, and that'll give it a little bit of a shine, but it also protect it. So I'm using Rust-Oleum Ultra Cover Clear Gloss. There's a whole bunch of others out there, but and I didn't mention, but I have cleaned these off, brushed them, cleaned them in the sink. Alright, so that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of wait for these to dry, and then we'll be ready to put them on the board. Alright, so now I'm going to tack these legs down, and I will say that with this poly coating, these feet and spurs, they just kind of pop, so I highly recommend doing that. Alright, so now I'm going to install, I guess you could call it that, I'm going to install these beards. And what I'm going to do, there's several ways you can do this, but one of them, you can put this in a shotgun shell, the brass part, and kind of glue it in there, screw a hole all the way, or drill a hole all the way through this, and just let it hang. That's one way, or just glue it into some notches, and that's the way I'm going to do it, just notch it out. And so when I drill a hole, all I want to do is go about the depth of kind of the skin part here. So now that I've got these kind of notched out, all I'm going to do is just put a little bit of super glue on the ends here. And this, insert it. Friction will hold most of these, but if you're wondering why I'm not filling in the middle, actually I've got several beards at a friend's house from birds I shot in years past that are a little bit bigger, and you know, it's been a few years, so I'm not exactly sure where I want them on here, so I'm leaving some room in the middle. So that's all we got to do. We'll let that sit 15 minutes and then they'll be secure in there. So this is the final product here. I think it turned out really well. I'm real happy with it. I'd love to hear what you guys think. If this is a project that you want to do, maybe you want to save it for later, put it in one of your playlists so you got it for later. Or share it with a friend if you know of somebody that might like this. But there's a few things that I definitely recommend doing if this is something that interests you. I really like how it turned out with wire brush, distressing it, adding those wormholes. I think it just had some authenticity to it. Kind of that cool factor, just unique. Another thing is adding a poly coat to the turkey legs and the spurs. It kind of brings out the colors in it and makes it pop a little bit. But I like how this is two-tone with the frame being one color and the background backboards being another. But overall, I was worried about this whitewash, how it would turn out, but I really like it. You know, applying it not very even, it just looks like it's real weathered, and it turned out exactly how I wanted it to. So this took about 4 days. A lot of it was the paint, or the stain drying, but another one was my air compressor breaking. Had to get a new one. But you know, it does take some time, but I've never done anything like this before. I'm not a wood crafter. I don't do this on weekends, so if I can do it, anybody can do it. This is kind of my first real project, other than replacing some deck boards maybe. But if you want to hang this on the wall, this is what I have here. It's a picture hanging kit by Everbuilt, 50-pound load limit. I think that should be sufficient. It is a little bit heavy, but you know, that should hold it just fine. But I'm glad that I didn't go 6 boards wide. It would have been too big. And one thing I do plan on doing is putting some pictures and maybe some turkey calls and different stuff like that in here. So overall, I'm quite pleased with it, and I hope you're happy, you know, with the video anyway. I don't know how it'll turn out, but anyways, give me some feedback below. You know, be nice about it. Don't be a jerk. I know sometimes those comments are funny to read, but other times it's just like, you know, people need to get a life. But I'd love to hear what you guys think. If you've got a similar project or something like that going on, I'd love to hear about it. So thanks again for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, if it's something that interests you, this channel, I encourage you to check out some other videos and maybe sign up. So thanks again for watching.